A very good morning, a very rainy morning here in Northwest Florida, but always a good one. It's good to have with us today JD Peacock. He is running for school board here in Okaloosa County, District 1, so that's the Shalimar, Fort Walton Beach area. JD, you have a lot of experience in local government, first as a sheriff's deputy and then as the clerk of courts for a long while. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
So yes, sir. Of course, I grew up here in Okaloosa County, all over the county, moved around, went off after high school to the Army, spent 4 years in the Army, came home with the idea that I wanted to work for the sheriff's office, and started in '89 um, as a volunteer, and then went into full time with the communication officer, and then progressed through every rank all the way to major and chief administrator of the sheriff's office. Um, Worked in a lot of different areas around the community. I think the only role that I didn't do was canine officer because I'm allergic to the some of those dogs. Uh, so, but I did everything else along the way, including being the chief administrator, budget officer, over policy, procedure, and accreditation. I led the sheriff's office through its first successful accreditation effort. Um, and so during that time, got to see policy procedures process as the budget director, got to see the county up close, especially their finances, to make sure that they were supporting law enforcement as a priority. That was one of my roles. And so saw some issues with the county, finances in particular, and some of the issues, and felt like because of my experience at the sheriff's office dealing with budget policy, procedures, financial oversight, and fiscal security, I saw some issues at the county level that I felt like I could bring my skills to. Decided to run for the clerk of court, which is the county's comptroller, on top of being the front desk to the court system. But you're the county comptroller, which means you oversee the over $400 million in surplus dollars, the budget application by the county commission. You're the finance officer for the county. It's an independent office, and it's designed to be a check and balance on the county commission, or with the county commission, on county staff and spending. And so investment officer managed the surplus. My team paid all the bills for the county, paid the employees, dealt with all the vendors, especially health care vendors and contractors, and ensuring that contracts were, when the payments came due, they were properly approved and reviewed. So those are the kind of things. And I saw a need when I was getting ready. I was about 25 years in the sheriff's office, and I saw a need over there that I felt like my skill set would help with. In particular, I felt like we needed an office of inspector general in the county. And so I ran on a promise to bring accountability and oversight and transparency to the county finances, where there was a little bit of lacking of that in the past. And so as soon as I took office, I started the process of implementing an inspector general, an accredited, policy-driven, standards, peer-reviewed inspector general department, to apply that as a place for both staff, citizens, county staff, concerned citizens could voice a concern. And we had an office that would look at the details and publish the reports of those concerns publicly. You can go back and look at the clerk's office site today and see some of those reports from back in the day that we looked at all manner of things, whether it be contracts with vendors or private-public partnerships. You know, there's a big sort of political buzzword going around of the Doge, and I will tell you that 12, 13 years ago, I guess I was ahead of my time, because I sort of brought the Doge to the county in the form of the inspector general's office, and the transparency of the reports, and the professionalism of the team that did those reports. And so that was one of my biggest goals when I went into the clerk's office. I told our community that I had a 10-year plan to improve certainly the fiscal oversight. That was the goal number one. Also to find ways to innovate on how we provided customer service. And so from the beginning to the end, my budget was similar in 10 years. However, during that time, we improved almost every measurable thing from customer service standpoint, number of cases processed, those kind of things. And during that time, I was able to find efficiencies that we could then feed back into our staff. And we had over 25 to 30% increases over time for my team to make sure that they were competitive in the environment in Okaloosa County. So we got good employees to do the role. And so did that while keeping the budget level during that time. You have to do that with efficiency. And so there's always a concern going around that because I've been in public service for as long as I have, that I'm part of the crowd and part of the status quo. Well, anybody that's ever dealt with me when I was at the clerk's office knows that's probably not accurate. I've brought a lot of change and a lot of cultural improvements at the clerk's office. After 10 years, as I promised, I said, I feel like there's a whole new younger leaders coming up in the clerk's office. Time for them to come in with their ideas. I certainly don't want to think that everybody think that I had all the best ideas. I had my ideas. I implemented that plan. Felt like we had a good organization when I stepped out, as I promised. And so from there, after retiring at the end of 24, my church needed some help with operations and getting our facility. We have an older facility, and so they needed some help doing some administrative and operational stuff. So I stepped into a little part-time role to help my church out. So I've been doing that for almost, a year and a half now, since the first of 25. Also, of course, I do a lot of sort of public service, I guess you'd call it, in my volunteer roles. I'm a member of the All Sports Association that feeds into our students in the athletic realm, as well as some others. I'm a past member of the FCA, past board chair for the Emerald Coast chapter of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. It's another way that we feed into our students. See what else? Past member of the foundation board at the college, past chairman of the foundation board at the college that supports our students there at our college here in the county. Let's see some other things. I'm a member of the vice president of my local Sons of the American Revolution, which one of their primary roles is finding ways to get our students engaged in the founders and the Constitution and the things that the founders wanted out of our Constitution and how our country has developed over the years, and respecting those patriots that gave so much back then. So I've been involved in that. Let's see, that's sort of where I'm at. I think, of course, I'm also the grandfather of three beautiful girls, one of which just graduated from Choctaw this year. Another's going to be a senior next year, and then one at Meigs.
Wow. So, I mean, busy man. Quick question about sports and all sports. I think this is a perfect question to ask you as a guy running for school board that's also on all sports. State government just passed a law. Governor DeSantis just passed 2 bills talking about coach pay, using subsidy, I guess, or extra monies from booster clubs or alumni associations to increase the compensation for head football coaches, other coaches. Do you have any initial thoughts on the passage of that bill, signature of that bill, or how it might affect us here in Okaloosa County?
Well, of course, anybody that's got kids in our schools that have been around Niceville or Baker or Choctaw or any of the other high schools and middle schools, we're serious about our sports around here, serious about our teams. We have a high expectation of our coaches on all levels, not just football, but on all levels. We've got a state competitive, several of the schools have state competitive female flag football teams. We've got a lot of coaches that feed into our kids, and making sure that we're getting good coaches is important. I've looked at the bill briefly. It limits the salaries to the highest paid administrator in the district. So it's not a case where we're going to have a junior Nick Saban making millions of dollars. That's not what this is about. This is making sure that we can attract really good coaches at all levels across the district, and it provides a tool for those invested in our kids to contribute to that thing. I'm a big believer in transparency and oversight. So there's a role that the district will play to make sure that we have transparency in things that are not supposed to happen don't happen. But I tend to think it's a good thing to make sure we're getting the quality of coaches that we need, that our community expects out of our programs.
Perfect. Well, so let's get into the school board election. I think the first thing that I would want to know, like you said, you're not, you want to say you're not a part of the crowd. So what changes would you want to implement as a school board member if you were to win this election?
So not a part of the crowd is maybe different. I have relationships that I built over 35 years, significant relationships with community leaders, both private sector and in the public realm, especially over the last 15 years, as I've been in a role that works with county commission, works with school boards. I was over the SRO program at the sheriff's office, worked with the contract with the school board, helped implement the policies, procedures, protocols for the expanded SRO program. By the way, our program still to this day leads in protocols and best in practice kind of SRO and school safety programs. Very proud of our sheriff's office and our school district who has invested in that. So relationships is what politics is about. You have to be able to call people. You have to be able to communicate. It's a team sport. Politics is from the federal, state, local, cities. Working with those folks and having relationships with them is how you accomplish the things that are across the different organizations. The school system is funded partially by local taxes, partially by state taxes that are and the local taxes is a big portion of them that are mandated by our legislature. So we have to be able to work with the legislature. We have to be able to work with folks at the Department of Education. So it's a team sport. I call politics. Having those relationships over 35 years, especially over the last 15 that I've been in a role where I need those relationships, that's important. You could ask anybody that I'm fairly trusted in how I run an organization, how I work with each other. I'll give you a quick example of working together. I think you were with the county when we had a big issue over how we were dealing with the tourist tax expansion across the county. And the cities, we got 9 municipalities. The cities wanted to make sure they were looked after. The county had a significant funding stream, and leading into that, there was discussions and issues between the cities and the different players. And so the cities and the county decided to get together and let's have some meetings and work together on a solution. And who did they ask to lead that effort and sort of monitor it and lead it? That was me. I was the one brought in and trusted by all of the different stakeholders to sort of lead the discussions without an agenda from my part and try to make sure we could work out a solution that was viable. That was a model across our region on how cities and county government work together to solve a problem that benefits our citizens across both municipalities and counties. And so I have believed since I've been in a leadership role at the sheriff's office and at the clerk's office that you have to work with these organizations. You have to find unity in the things that we all agree that we need to work on. And so I'll take that skill to the school board because there's a lot of players. There's private sector, all sports, and all these different organizations that want to feed into our kids and provide them with opportunity. We have to be able to work with them. We have to work with our legislative stakeholders, our Judge Maney and Senator Gates and Senator Trumbull and House Member Boyles. There's a lot of folks we have to work with. I've built relationships with all them. They trust when I'm coming in, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do, and I'm going to help them as well as help us and find ways to unify. We have gotten into a place, certainly at the state and national level, of we're not coming together as leaders trying to find the things that we agree on and let's work on unity on those things that we can make a difference on. We tend to scream about the differences that we have. And generally, especially about our school system, there's a pretty big bunch of us in our community that want a great system that provides our students with the ability to be successful when they leave school, whether it be college, the military, the trades. And so finding ways to come together and unify, that's important.
So you've covered some great stuff, and I want to, I guess, ask a little bit of a different question, but you have these great partnerships. You're able to work with a lot of people, and a lot of people trust you to do these things. But what changes with you on the school board? Are there any changes that you would like to see once you're on the board that you would push for that maybe would be different than what's going on right now?
Certainly. So I'll start with, I think we've got a great school system. I think we got wonderful educators, from the bus drivers to the custodians to the teachers in the classroom, all of those folks that have a calling to serve our students, to serve our community. I think we've got great people. But understand, we have 28,000 students. We have 100,000 parents, step parents, grandparents. It's a bunch of people, humans. And so we have our human condition that feeds into that organization. So we are going to have issues along the way. And so what I believe in is taking a good system, and in my past experiences, I've put in cultures that we're continuously looking for improvement. Every day we go to work, we try to improve things. And so that's what I commit to. I've got a skill set that I can look at our almost, $800 million budget, $150 million worth of half-cent sales tax. There's a significant amount of money, all different kind of buckets of money that you use for different ways in government. I can use my skill set every day to look for efficiencies and effective use of taxpayer dollars to find ways to improve. I believe that everybody needs to be working to improve every day. And so I'll go in with that mindset, a culture of always setting high expectations and always trying to attain them. And the minute we attain a goal, we're looking for the next goal, because I think it is a everyday process to try to improve on what we've done already. We can't rest on our laurels. And so that's an experience that I've had. That's a proven way I've done business in the last 15 years in leadership. That every day we go to work trying to find ways to improve. And I believe we've got a lot of administrators, school staff, folks in the classroom that believe the same thing. They're trying to do the best they can. We need to be consistent about how we support our teachers and how we support that direct support staff around the teachers in the classroom. That's the most important piece of the puzzle to accomplish the core mission of the organization, which is to educate and prepare our students. Is that classroom and the direct support staff of those teachers. Everybody else in the organization works every day to try to improve the ability for our educators to feed into our kids. And so major changes, I certainly will use my skills to scour the budget. We've got a good school board that has a lot of different perspectives. I believe I bring a balance from the government sort of understanding of the finances in a government perspective to the board. We got some great business leaders. We got an educator. And so bringing my skill set to balance them out because of the understanding I have on of government finance and how the legislature works and some of the things that we're getting from mandates from the state. I feel like that's a good balance. And so really, I have no huge things. I will tell you my priorities are student safety, safety of our campuses and our staff. That's my number one goal. My background is in public safety for 25 years. And so if we can't have safe schools and safe places for them to be educated, none of the rest of it matters much if we can't be safe. And that includes consistent application of discipline in the classrooms, and certainly working with the school safety teams and the sheriff's office that provides SROs to make sure we've got a comprehensive top end, leading the state, just like we have, school safety program. That's number one. Number two is fiscal oversight. So from day one, it's not even day one, I've been already scouring the budgets that are online. The schools, the district's webpage has a significant amount of data and information related to finances and expenses and budgets and all kinds of reports to the state that I've been scouring through. I understand what those are. I've had to deal with them. I did the audit for the county for years, worked with the auditor, external auditors that came in. And so I understand sort of how those things present information. And so from day one, that's what I'm digging into and finding ways every day to improve little things, finding savings here that we can make more effective somewhere else, especially feeding into those classrooms. Number three priority is making sure we're supporting our educators and our direct support staff, make sure they know that we've got their back. We have vetted them, we've hired them, we've done backgrounds, we've reviewed their classroom work when they were probationary. We train them, we find ways to give them the tools. So we need to make sure that they know that we've got their back, especially in providing a consistent disciplinary environment, making sure we're eliminating distractions, finding ways and programs that will eliminate those distractions, or certainly mitigate the distractions. Like I said, we got 29,000 little humans that have the human condition, and all of the other folks. And so understand we are all trying to do our best, some not as much as others, but in our teachers and those frontline servants are the ones dealing with those sort of that human nature of folks, and they're trying every day to improve the outcomes for their students. I think our administration at every level and every day needs to be working to give them the tools to find consistent ways to improve the classroom environments. And so those are my three biggest priorities that I'll certainly start day one, if not already started looking at solutions and ways to improve.
So to that end, Okaloosa County teachers are paid less than Walton County teachers by some factor between, it depends on how long they've been there, between $5,000 and $10,000 a year.
Yes, sir.
How would you be in favor of a pay increase for Okaloosa County teachers? And if so, how would you pay for it?
So absolutely. So to give you some context, Walton County has a third of the students of Okaloosa County and a tax base twice what Okaloosa County has. So their per child kind of tax, the funding revenue to do things is significantly different on a large scale than us. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean we just say, throw up our hands and say we can't help. So finding every way to find the dollars and efficiencies to feed into our teachers is the first thing. Scouring those budgets. We're right now waiting on the final results of the state budget in order to finalize the county school district's budget. And so we don't even know what those numbers are. People are working fiercely right now to understand the impact of the budget that was presented to the legislators that will vote on Friday. So they're trying to understand that impact on how we can then provide raises to the teachers. I'm a big believer in, we have high expectations. We have a high performing, especially when you look at the assessments that have gone up over the last 3 years. We have high expectations. We have high results. When compared to the state, we need to make sure that we're supporting the folks that are accomplishing that goal. And being number 50 in the country is not the place that I want to be. I don't like being last in anything, especially when you're comparing. And so now taking a direct comparison to Walton's hard to do just because of the funding mechanism of that. There has been conversation about a millage increase to support specifically teacher and direct support staff salaries. And so I would only support that if it was a grassroots effort by our citizens and voted on by our citizens. And after we've had a chance to hunt every nickel and dime we can find in a $830 million budget to try to put that into teachers. Now understand, teacher salaries are a significant amount. Teacher and staff salaries are a significant amount of our budgets in the operational world, which is about half of the budget. The other half is capital improvements that you cannot use those dollars for teacher salaries or operations. And so doing a raise for our teachers, just doing, say, a cost of living that keeps up with the cost of things in our community at this point, that's millions of dollars. And it's not just millions of dollars this year, it's millions of dollars into the future. Mm-hmm. On top of the fact that the district was forecasting I won't classify it as a shortfall, it's a funding imbalance of about $17 million based on a lot of different factors. So they're starting the year in the hole and then trying to figure out how to find the dollars to feed into the salaries and conditions for our staff. I'm a big believer that they need more money. I don't like being last. I don't like the fact that we are performing at a high level and we're not rewarding the folks that are doing the work to get us there. We need to find ways to do that. My skill set, I'm not an educator. I listen to the experts on education on how we do things. I try my best to learn everything I can about it. But I listen to those educators, and I know that we can have. If we're going to have high expectations, which we do as a community, then we need to figure out how to make sure that they can afford to support their families and do this work that they're called to do, as opposed to going off and doing something else a little more lucrative for their families. These teachers and direct support staff, they have to make a decision personally on. Are they looking out for their family's best interest, or they're doing this thing that they're called to do? Well, I want them to be able to do both of those things. And so I certainly agree that they need a raise, and we have to find ways. Certainly, I want to look at every nickel we've got right now, every resource we've got right now, and then we'll see what the citizens want to do down the road. I'm not a proponent of tax increases. Certainly, as a representative, I would not support that unless our citizens, through a grassroots effort, feel like that's the way to do it. If you look at both the county and the school districts half-cent sales tax for infrastructure programs that went on. Those were grassroots-led efforts by our community that we the community took that helped with that, took it to our citizens, said, here's the facts, here's what we'll use the dollars for. We will only use the dollars for this. And now it is up to you if you feel like you trust the folks in charge that are going to do that. And on both instances, I feel like as a citizen paying taxes, I feel like we've gotten a great result out of both the county and the school district's application of that half-cent sales tax. And we have oversight committees of citizens that are watching to make sure we're doing exactly what we said we would do, both at the county. I was part of that process, as well as the school district. So, if you tell our citizens the truth, the facts about how we're funding things, they will step up to that challenge. And if they trust and think that the leaders are going to do it the way they're telling them they're going to do it and what the facts are, they'll support it. But like I say, I would only be a supporter of that if we had a grassroots effort and if we had a plan that we could explain to our citizens and our citizens decided that through a vote.
So I want to show you a graph that I created a couple years ago. Basically, this is the school testing passage rate for the standardized test that we have here in the state of Florida. I did it for every county just because I didn't believe it at first. But we've seen a steady decline since 2004 of the number of kids passing their state tests all around the state. Only one county, Walton, has actually gone up. But Okaloosa has seen this 10-point decline from 2004 to 2024. How would you work to change that and get our test scores back up?
So I'll tell you, part of this I think is the impact of COVID and in that we're getting into testing years where that COVID issue of the kids having to be in such a distraction and changing in the environments, and we're starting to see those grade level testing to have an impact. We just need to continue to do the good things we're doing, making sure that our teachers. I give you an example. In the course of going to the school board workshops and school board meetings over the last several months, there are programs that our administrators are bringing to the school board, explaining the things that they're trying to do to improve this. They're already working on that. Dr. Small, one of the administrators that's working on programs, has presented a couple times. One I saw was about the kindergarten, the programs they want to put in place for kindergartners. I think this last week it was about first graders. And so our district is already trying to find ways to combat this. I tend to think it's probably just sort of the coming due of the things that we had to do to get through COVID and the impact of all that. And now we're starting to see grade levels hit, the testing grades that hit those tests, those standardized tests. We're starting to see the impact of that. And so, just like I said before, it's every day expectations of our leaders coming up with plans to try to find that. I have seen over the course of the last several meetings, our administrators and our staff trying to find ways to improve those outcomes over time. Just like we didn't get here yesterday, and now we're 4 or 5 years past COVID, and you're starting to see the impact of what happened during that time. It'll take another consistent efforts to improve for the next several years to find ways to improve. There was a report yesterday related to some of the testing that has not been released yet, but some of the different areas, the staff is able to see some of the numbers as their process is happening. They're still waiting for the Department of Education to come up with the actual numbers, but they're seeing improvements on K2 improvements. They're seeing improvements on math, science from 3 to 5, third to 5th grade. They're starting to see improvements across the different testing areas. And so the way you improve that is consistent, working on programs, working with the educators. Part of the role of some of those administrators at the district are finding programs that are effective. And I've started to see some of those presentations in the school board. That's what I would expect as a school board member, is that our professional staff that have these skills are bringing programs and plans to the school board, and then the school board's being involved in understanding it, making sure it's being applied, the follow up to make sure people are doing what's expected of them. So that's the way I see that we get to that point. But that's a consistent application over years to get us back to a place that we took us 4 or 5 years before we really started seeing the results of COVID.
About a month ago at a school board meeting, the superintendent of schools revealed that he had a relationship with a subordinate that has turned into a proposal of marriage. It's not against state law, DOE policy, the school board's policy. I guess my question to you is, should it be? Is this a conflict of interest?
So there are certainly issues across all organizations when you have relationships with folks that work with you or for you in particular. And of course, the superintendent, all the staff works for the superintendent. And so there is certainly the opportunity for the school board to look at policies in the future. But understand one thing, the superintendent doesn't work for the school board. The superintendent is an independently elected CEO of the school district. He reports to the citizens of Okaloosa County. And for disciplinary concerns, removal, the governor. He doesn't report to the school board. So there's probably an opportunity to look at and there always is an opportunity to look at policies. I'm a big believer in always reviewing policies timely to see if there's improvements we can make. That's across all our policies. This one was brought to light by some folks that are concerned about how the process worked. What I know, I have not seen the report from DOE or the attorney. What I know is the school board requested that a review be done by a employment attorney's office who does that. And I've worked with those kind of organizations for years, both at the county and the clerk's office level. Those tend to be highly professional, understand the rules and laws related to employment law. That review took place. It was from an anonymous complaint to the Department of Education's Inspector General. The Inspector General chose not to apply their resources and just sent it back down to the district to look into it. The district did that by employing a employment law firm who looked at it, and from my understanding, found it unfounded. The complaint was unfounded, and as far as I can tell, the Department of Education, their Inspector General was fine with how the process worked. I've got to rely on I feel like they're a professional organization. And so I've got to rely on that. And from that point forward, it's really between the citizens and the governor and the superintendent. So does that mean that the school board doesn't have a role? They do. They are based on the way this is set up in the state. The state school board's a sort of a check and balance on how the schools are administered. The lead of the administration of the schools is the superintendent. They set policy and procedure, and they set expectations. And so there's probably a role to review policies. However, I'm not sure a board policy in relation to this applies to the superintendent. So, at some point you have to do what your role is. I really don't want to go down this road. I feel like it's been dealt with by the current board. And I'm not going to second guess what I've seen at this point. I want to focus on supporting students and finding ways for them to be successful, because I have not seen yet in the meetings I've gone to or the conversations I've had how this is whatever this allegation is impacting the success for students. And so that's sort of where I'm coming from on that.
Got it. So the school board recently voted to close Longwood Elementary and Mary Esther Elementary. Do you agree with that decision, and what, if anything, would you have done differently?
So I've reviewed the presentations on it. I will tell you, I think that the superintendent and the staff did a good job in communication with the stakeholders in the closure of these schools. At some point, it's a business decision. This is an $830 million business that we're operating in government rules. There are impacts to student enrollment, impacts on the flow of population to the north end versus the south end, the population demographic in the south end. So it's hard decisions when you have to basically consolidate some schools. Any business people will tell you that sometimes you have to do that to be fiscally sound. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt your heart, those communities. The Longwood Elementary is right through the back fence of my house. And so the community here and the students here and the students and families that I know are my neighbors it hurts your heart when a community school closes, both here in Mary Esther. It's concerning. I want to know, did the district do everything they could? And so far, I have not seen where they have not. I felt like they got to a point where it was a business decision that had to be made. We expect our leaders, especially our elected officials, to make the hard decisions. This is a hard decision. And so nothing I've seen shows me that there was another option other than the private sector or charter schools or those kind of things. I'm not running to be an elected official of the charter schools or the private schools. They can fend for themselves. I'm running to make sure that our public schools are effective, especially effective use of our tax dollars, and making sure that we're finding ways to ensure that students are successful. So there's been talk about how much was put into the half-cent sales tax and the capital taxes put into these organizations. Well, Longwood and Mary Esther, those projects we're working on because they needed it, because we had students in them for the last 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years, when they were doing those improvements. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you stop and then let the kids that have to go to those schools for 5 years languish because we don't want to put a nickel in it, something that we may not have in the future. So I don't believe that it was a waste. I believe that a couple of things will happen. That Longwood will be turned back over to our military. They are in desperate need of office space and other kind of resources. And so while it may be our tax dollars from a half-cent sales tax that went to improve Longwood, it's going to benefit the military infrastructure, which is our core economic driver in our communities. So I'm not seeing a loss from we didn't spend money down the drain, is what I'm telling you, because that's going to be useful by Eglin. It needed to be improved for the students that were there during those last few years. Same goes for Mary Esther. Mary Esther students I didn't feel like they needed to just sit there and no improvement needed to happen to their school while they were still there. Now, Mary Esther is one that can be liquidated, and I think the district has already put it out through their processes on how you liquidate property. So there's going to be a return. That property's on Highway 98. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a value there that we'll get any investment into that property back to be able to use for capital improvements across the district. The consolidation of excess space across the district is a good business move. Like I say, it hurts the heart for those of us that either are in these communities with these schools or have gone to these schools or have been teachers or led these schools. It hurts your heart to understand we have to get there. But the facts on the ground, at some point, we hold our leaders accountable to do the things that the hard decisions have to be made. And I think that's what the district did here. And so at this point, I don't see a difference that could have been made at this point. There certainly are probably plenty of ideas out there, but my current view, being from the sort of the outside looking in, I have not seen something that would give me a concern. And I did notice that just the communication efforts that the district did were very good, is what I feel like.
So Connie asked a really great question in the chat, so I wanted to bring it up. She says, thoughts on building a new school in Crestview? The county's been adding elementary, middle schools over the years, including Pinewood, which is coming up quickly, but not a high school. Crestview High School is currently overcrowded. It's not going to get better, especially with all the houses being built. What are your thoughts on building a new high school or secondary school on top of Pinewood or something like that to split the number of kids going to Crestview?
So the conversations I've had is that while Crestview is at capacity, the times that the kids are there because of different things in relation to off-campus learning or dual enrollment, those kind of things, they do not have a capacity issue at Crestview at the moment. Okay. It appears to me just the simple fact that the district went through their sort of capital improvement master plan work to identify the need for a K-8 school in Pineview. Mm-hmm. That shows you that the district is doing the things from a strategic planning standpoint to see the changes coming. Crestview is while it's an older school, it's newer than Choctaw and Niceville. But so at some point, given the growth of the North End, I have no doubt that we're going to have to look at how we're doing the schools in the future. But it appears to me on the surface that through reading the strategic plan that's on the website, you just got to go find it. There's a 5-year projected funding. There's a 10-year anticipation of sort of trends that they're reviewing every year and adjusting every year. It's called the capital improvements master plan. I can see where the district is doing the things that you need to do to plan for student sort of demographics over time. And there may be a time as we move forward with the growth that we're seeing in Crestview, there's significant developments going on at Shoal River Ranch that are going to be economic drivers for the North End. There's the work the county has done to provide for better transportation infrastructure in the North End. So there's a lot of room for growth in the North End. The whole west side of Crestview is now opened up because the feeders and the bypass roads are around the southwest or southeast corridor, southwest corridor.
Yeah.
So there's significant room for growth. The South End for years has been built out. And so while there's some property that is little pieces of property that are being converted to some apartments and workforce development, that kind of thing, the volume of the growth is going to be in the north end of the county. Mm-hmm. So from what I can tell from this master plan of the conversations that I've had, they're watching that closely on when and where there would be the opportunity, the appropriate opportunity to invest. I don't know, $120, $150 million for a whole new high school. Yeah, that needs to be strategic in how we do that. The capital, until we had to have sales tax, there was no even concern to worry about new schools, just because the amount of dollars that it takes to keep up the 38 schools we have is significant. Hundreds of millions of dollars to keep those facilities operational. And so while I think that we will see the growth to the point where there will be a time, and I may be on the board when it's time to say, okay, let's start visioning when we're actually going to have to do an additional high school. But we have some capacity at the school. We have the property to be able to expand it a little bit. One of the capital improvement master plan ideas is that the district has property in schools that they can increase the capacity because they have the property already and they have the infrastructure there already. That's a significantly reduced cost than building a school from the ground up. And you can see that across the district. They're adding classrooms at Destin Elementary. They're adding different resources in the cafeteriums that then they're adding the new ones across the different district schools so that they can convert the old area into classrooms and finding ways to be more efficient with the dollars we're using to provide capacity, especially as the shifting demographic happens.
So final question from me, but do you support school choice? How do you retain or increase competitiveness, wow, big word, while also ensuring all student needs are met?
So I think it's a vision of our state leaders who decide these things on what the future of the education in Florida holds. I think it's their vision that they believe that school choice is the proper direction. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in competition. That's the reason I'm saying I don't like being last in anything. From the sheriff's office, the clerk's office, I always looked at how other folks were doing things, because if they had a good idea, I was going to steal it and try to improve it on where I'm at. And so I don't believe in being last at things. So competition to me is a good thing. And what I want, though, is I want to ensure that the competition is fair. So, I tend to say it this way. So, the rules and regulations around a public school are about, they're thousands of pages. The rules and regulations around a charter school are significantly less, but it's still a publicly funded school that has to get their curriculum approved in relation to the DOE's rules and curriculums. Then you've got the private schools and the home schools that are significantly less rules around that. And today, your tax dollars go there. So up until recently, your tax dollars didn't go to the private schools and the home schools. Now they do. So that's a government program. Don't get me wrong. If taxpayer dollars are going somewhere, that's a government program. I'm running for school board, which means I'm going to have oversight, if I'm elected, of the public school system and the public school dollars that you taxpayers pay. And so my concern is when taxpayer dollars are going somewhere else, you're not interviewing the private school board of directors on your show. You're not interviewing the homeschool parents on your show. You're not getting the public doesn't have the opportunity to talk to those people and how they're spending their tax dollars.
There's no accountability.
I won't say no accountability, because there is. Right. And understand, in Okaloosa County, we've got great parents, we've got great solutions, we've got private schools and charter schools that are doing great things. What I want to make sure is we get to learn from their lessons that they're teaching us in a competitive environment,
Okay.
and figure out how to be able to apply those to our public schools. So if they have less rules and they can do some innovative things, how do I take what they're doing and apply it to our public schools when we got rules that won't allow us to do that? That's a competitiveness problem from fairness. That's a concern I got, where the dollars are going and how those are have oversight. But the fact that we have school choice is a good thing. It allows competitive pressures to improve everything, including the government space. It just needs to be fair, both on the testing and the expectations for education, as well as the financial dollars and the tax dollars. The Auditor General of the state did a review and found $400 million is missing on some of the scholarship money. That concerns me. As a taxpayer, this concerns me. Now, I don't think that's happening here in Okaloosa County, because I know our community and I know the kind of things that we're trying to do here. The problem is if we don't get a handle on that from a state policy standpoint, other places are going to sort of ruin that competitive nature that we've got here. And like I said, we've got some great educators in the private sector, charter school sector, homeschool. I know plenty of them that are doing the best they can. Now they have an additional resource to apply to improve that thing. One last thing I'll leave you with, the charter schools and private schools, they get to choose if they're going to keep a student. Mm-hmm. The public schools don't. Constitution says we will educate everybody and give them a high quality education. And so when there are disciplinary issues or disruption issues, private schools and the charter schools, they can decide they don't want to have that in their school and disruption. Public schools don't have that option. So I understand when you start looking long term at the metrics that we use to gauge things, always remember that. So that's the reason I say, I'm a big believer in competition, but I want the competition to be fair and equitable across the organizations. But I am by no means hostile to parent choice. I believe, that pressure always needs to be put on government to improve, to remain as effective with your tax dollars as possible. And so having an entity that's pushing on us is fine, but I want to make sure it's a level playing field as we move forward.
Got it. And so I've asked all these questions. Is there anything else you want the voters to know or consider before August 18th is just when you can vote, and you can vote 2 weeks early. And if you need to vote by mail-in ballot, make sure that you're all up to date on all the regulations. But is there anything else that you need people to be considering or know about you?
Other than, I have been involved in our community in volunteer roles, in government work roles, in leadership roles. I've made relationships for the last 35 years in our community, the last 15 in senior leadership of organizations. Those relationships, we have to work together to improve things. It's a team sport in politics. People need to trust you. I've got a proven track record on the things that I have done to improve organizations. I am by no means status quo. You can ask anybody that's ever worked with me. If I'm just a status quo guy, they'll tell you an earful probably more than you want to know. So, I'm present. You remember it when you were with the county, the clerk doesn't have to go to the county commission meetings. I intentionally went to the county commission meetings every time it was there, because I wanted my citizens to know that I'm there if they need to come ask me a problem, solve a problem. I'm in the community. So I'm in the chamber, I'm at the club meetings, I'm at everything I can find to be at, because I believe that leaders in our community need to come to the citizens. I'm not demanding you show up at the meeting. Now, certainly it's a public meeting. Come on and give your feedback at the meetings. I'm all for it. I believe, citizen engagement is a wonderful thing. It lets us know what our community is expecting at any given time. It lets us know the problems they're seeing. But I'm going to be in the community. You don't have to come hunt me. I'm going to be there. And I've done that for the last 15 years in leadership. So I'm going to be at the chamber. I'm going to be at the wherever. And so it's not hard to find me if you've got a concern you need to voice. All you got to do is call me. On my Facebook you can find that. And it's got my cell number. It's got my email. I got the messages you can send me on the DM for Facebook. I'm not hard to find in our community. And so, I'm not going to have every answer. I am not an expert in everything. I know how to work with and expect professionals to do good jobs. I expect people to do their jobs. I'm going to make sure that we're carrying high expectations. And so I think that's probably all I can think of at the moment.
No worries. Well, let me do.
I will tell you this: my number one goal from day one. Oh, I lost you.
No, you're here. I'm here.
My number one day one is always be looking for student success, so that the students are successful and they come out and look for the futures past high school, whether it be college, the military, or the trades. And I think we've got a great community that expects that of us.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for being here. Mr. JD Peacock running for School Board District 1. You can see all of the candidates that we are looking to interview. If they're in color, we've interviewed them. If they're green, they have locked in a date to speak with us. Commissioner Danny Glidewell of Walton County speaking with us tomorrow. Still working on getting a couple of people, but to everybody that's been on there, you can find all of their information on our website. And of course, we will put up the full elections website for you to look through every single candidate, every interview, every question we ask, so that you can make an informed decision. Thank you so much for being here, sir. We really appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
All right.